Hi friends, Mindy here. I have a little process video for you today. I'm going to be creating the cover for my little Midori journal. This was the DIY kit from Bythewell4God this month, and I know that this sold out super fast this month. Everybody really loves DIY kits. I'm going to go through and show you what was in here. It was very neatly packaged, by the way. I just had already taken it out to play with it, and I love this. It came in a canvas drawstring bag like everything does. I'm going to save that and actually make a journal out of that. So it did come with a couple of ribbons for bookmarks. This is the journal itself. It's an A5 size Midori journal. The paper in it is lovely. It's got kind of a yellowish, cream color to it, so it's not that bright white paper, but the texture of it's amazing. And of course, it comes with enough fabric to cover your journal. There's some extra fabric here for the spine if you want to kind of create an accent, or you could even tear it and sew it into pieces and make a closure. Anyway, there's some elastic so that you could hold the Midori itself in there. This is some Tyvek to make the spine nice and strong. And don't worry, I'm going to go through the rest of the pieces. These are like end papers and the chipboard and stuff. But if you weren't able to snag this kit, you can certainly do this by yourself. It's just a little more labor intensive on your end in that you will need to cut down some cardstock. Now, this is not like regular lightweight chipboard. I know if you just saw one of my other journals I did using like a Wheat Thins box or a cereal box or something like that. This is bookboard, and so it's much thicker and it's very sturdy, and I really feel like it's going to last a long time. And then you have all the end papers to cover on the inside, and then another option here for how to secure the actual notebook inside the journal in creating these little slides. This is actually the way that I will be doing it, but lots of options. It's kind of a choose your own adventure in how you want to do this. I did have to refold these just a little bit, like ever so slightly, but I'll talk about that when we get to that point. So that's everything basically that you need. So I'm going to start with the basic construction of the journal. I am going to be using some score tape. This is the scrapbook.com version, double-sided adhesive, really strong adhesive. You could certainly try to use a liquid glue if that is your preference. I would suggest something that if you are going to do that, that you apply it with a brush. You want a nice thin layer, and that's just going to keep everything from seeping through and making sure that you don't have any bubbles or anything like that, because you really want that adhesive to cover the entire piece. So I'm putting my first little section of adhesive here on my spine piece because I want to center that in the middle of this Tyvek. So Tyvek, if you've never used it, is like almost a flexible paper. A lot of mailing envelopes from the post office are made out of Tyvek. Tyvek is actually something they use to it's almost like a moisture barrier for houses that they use. So it's used for a lot of different things. We like it for book making because it's nice and flexible. So if you ever get anything mailed to you in a postage mailer that is Tyvek, save that. Now, I'm showing you here, this is what you do not want to do. So if you are creating this journal, you want to give yourself a little wiggle room between the spine and the front and back cover. So anytime you create a journal, however you want to do this, you always want to leave a little space there to allow those covers to fold up. So I'm just applying the double-sided adhesive, and a good rule of thumb is that you want that space to be the equivalent of the thickness of the board. So I'm just kind of holding this in place and lining everything up so that I can make sure that I'm getting it pretty close to the right spacing. And then you can see how that kind of just slots down in there, and see how nicely that will fold that way. So it just helps with the opening and closing of your journal. Now on this side, obviously I can't measure it, so I'm just going to eyeball that, which is just easier because I've already got that one side down. But you always want to leave yourself just a little bit of a gap whenever you are creating a journal like this. If you're doing one that doesn't have like a continuous spine, if you use like a cereal box or something for a journal, like I've done, then you obviously don't have to worry about that. But if you're constructing your own, even out of your own chipboard, then you want to make sure that you leave that little space in there. So this Tyvek on the inside, I just wrapped it around, and you could certainly cut it down to size if you wanted to, but I just thought that extra little bit of security would be good. And so I just added some more double-sided adhesive, and then I did kind of crease it down in those little gaps. So the next thing that I'm going to do is I am going to cover this entire cover in double-sided adhesive. And this is, again, the scrapbook.com version. I own this in lots of different sizes. This one is ginormous and a little unwieldy, but it works quicker than the other sizes. And I do a lot of journal making, so it's quite handy for me. Now, this next step, what I'm doing right here is personal preference. So you could totally omit this step if you so choose. I just wanted it to be a nice bright board. You could certainly gesso it, add a couple of coats of acrylic paint or something on that chipboard to make it nice and bright white. I did that simply because I wanted it to be really bright underneath that fabric. It doesn't necessarily show through, but the colors are just more vibrant with having this white underneath there. So I'm just going to start here at the left side, and I just pulled back just a couple of the release papers, and I'm going to wrap this entire cover in this white paper. And this is just some stuff that I have had in my stash. I cut down to a little bit larger than my cover. And then I'm just going to go kind of section by section here, smoothing everything down. My paper is wrinkly. It doesn't matter. It's not going to hurt anything. And I'm just going to kind of smooth everything down. Obviously, you don't want huge, big bubbles, but you can kind of see that wrinkle down the middle. You will never know that it's there. And then I just smoothed everything down with my bone folder. And now I'm going to go around those corners just like I would do any other cover. And I'm going to trim out kind of a corner section and then a couple of little V sections where at the beginning and ending of the text block. And then I'm going to go around and cover this. Now, here is where I ran out of my favorite size of scrapbook.com tape. And so I'm moving on to a liquid adhesive. You'll see that I use a bunch of different adhesives in this video because I seem to be running out of everything at this moment. So I am just, again, applying this with a brush because I want to have just a thin coat. This is the glue that I'm using is a bookbinder's glue. Any kind of PVA would work, but you could use Mod Podge if you so choose. I have mentioned this before. Mod Podge is not my favorite, especially in my climate here. It gets sticky sometimes. So it's not my favorite preferred method, but other people use it and don't have trouble. So, but this is specifically a bookbinder's glue. But again, you could use any kind of white PVA would work. So I just went around that with that little brush. And again, that was simply so that, do you see how nice and bright these colors now show up? But it would have been totally fine on the cardboard, look as well. The colors just weren't quite as bright and to my eye anyway. So, but again, you could accomplish the same thing with just gessoing that if you wanted to. So now I'm going to go through this process kind of a second time, but this time for the fabric. So I'm going to cover the entire thing again in this double-sided adhesive. An alternative to this, and I have done this on my channel before too, I will try to link the list of journal videos that I have, but you could use a product called Heat and Bond where you iron it on to the fabric and then you kind of iron that fabric on to the substrate. I did a little bit of that actually in the last journal video that I did, which is my setup for On the Brink for Bythewell4God. That's kind of, I used that product in there. And I can't honestly say what one day I'll use one and one day I'll use the other. They're kind of interchangeable in my mind, but I had just used that in that video. So I thought I would use this double-sided adhesive just to kind of give you an idea of a range of options. You could also use a fabric glue if you want to. Again, I would suggest if you do use a fabric glue, apply it or, at least smooth it out with like a credit card scraper or something to try to prevent it from seeping through the fabric or being able to see like the draw marks where you're drawing the glue, where you're squeezing the glue out. You just want a nice even coverage. So again, I'm just going very slowly, section by section here. I'm going to smooth everything out with this double-sided adhesive and it's going to hold everything down really, really well. And I also like this. It just kind of gives it an extra layer. I don't know. It just, I like the way that double-sided adhesive works. It's just very convenient. But so is the Heat and Bond as well. So I'm going to go around and do the same thing with the corners. I'm going to cut out a little V section on each of the four corners. The only exception here is I'm not going to trim at the spine. I'm just going to totally wrap this. So I have this wider tape. You can see, like I said, I own this in pretty much all of the sizes, because I don't have any of that, like the inch or whatever, inch and a half, which is my favorite, especially for wrapping journals. But all of this is going to get covered with adhesive anyway, so it's going to work out just fine. I am going through here and just spending a little time with the spine. I'll take my bone folder anytime I'm adding a layer and just kind of continue that in the gutter of those pieces to make sure that my spine is going to close well. So I'm starting top and bottom here with this adhesive and just bringing up the fabric. You can see me doing again with my bone folder, just kind of pressing it down into there, making sure it folds, just kind of working that spine multiple times. It's just going to help it to stay nice and flexible, and just peeling the backer off here. And I do have, you could see there is some exposed adhesive, but again, we're going to be putting those pages on to cover that, so it's not going to be a problem. So you can see I've done it now all 4 sides, and now I'm going to pull in the covers, the end papers. So there is this one piece that's for the spine. Now, it's also scored already, but this is the point where if you want to include these bookmarks that they included, you could use both of these. I'm only going to use one, but this is the time that you want to glue this in. So I am just going to glue this down with a little bit of Fabri-Tac, and because I'm not worried about if it seeps through or it sometimes can stain the fabric. You can kind of see right there on that ribbon, but it's going to get covered up anyway. So I'm going to add adhesive to the backside of this paper that's going to cover the spine. And the only thing that I did notice with this little section for me personally is my little gap was just a little bit wider than where this is actually scored at. So what you'll see me do is I'm going to go in after I have glued this down with my bone folder, and I'm just going to go again in that little gutter and kind of widen out that score, and it will be just fine. It's going to fold very well. So I'm going to pull off the backer. And again, I think I've mentioned this before, but I just kind of pull the backer back and fold it down. I don't pull it completely off and when I'm doing stuff like this, because I want to be able to line it up. So this gives me the freedom to kind of get it in place where I want, and then I can kind of just press down on that little top section. It's going to hold everything, and then I can remove the release paper, because this double-sided adhesive is so strong that if you stick it, it's pretty much stuck. So this just gives me a little bit of room so that I don't stick it where I don't want it. So, and then I'm just going to push this down here. I'm going to use my bone folder again here. I'm just going in that fold, and this is just going to really help kind of break up the fibers of that paper, that cardstock that we're putting here, and it's just going to keep it so that it folds nice and easy. You can kind of see you have to work it a little bit, and over time this will also become a little bit more flexible. But I'm just spending some time with it again. I'm going to take my bone folder and kind of go in the groove like while it's folded. Just make sure everything's pressed down really well, and any wrinkles that form just from it naturally folding. Again, you could use a liquid glue here if you wanted to. Just let it dry before you are manipulating it too much, because it'll just keep pulling. But and then I'm going to go through, and now the end papers that they included are perfectly cut. Saves so much time and hassle this way. So it just takes all of the thinking out of it. But I am going to line this up now as best as I can with the top of that end paper that I already have. Now you could have put these in first and then put the center in if you wanted to. I just like to do the spine piece first, and then I do these over the top of that. But you could do it either way. You could add fabric in here if you wanted something more decorative. You could add patterned paper in here if you wanted to. These just are what came with the kit, and they are the perfect size. So I'm just lining this up. You can see this is where I stuck down with too much zeal. So I was able to pull it up just a little bit. So it's not 100% straight, but it's okay. It's good enough. So, and this kind of basically is the structure of the journal. Now, it did come with this elastic, and with the intention that if you wanted to do this, you could poke holes in that spine piece and run your elastic through there and create a way to hold your journal in this journal cover. kind of similar to the way that you would do, a traveler's notebook or, just a regular Midori cover. You can do that with, and you could do it even with 2 holes and run it through, or you can do it with 1. I'm going to pull in a journal that I did before. This was out of Craft Text with this same kind of idea. So it had the elastic running through, and then you would just kind of slip this in there and have that be your, not closure, but the way to secure your journal in the book. So you can definitely do that. You could even run it through the back and just have it hold kind of the whole journal. I have seen covers like that. They're not my favorite, but you could definitely do it that way if you wanted to. You could even, there's just a million ways that you could do that. But I am going to use these little pieces that they included that you can basically kind of create a slide cover this way. So this is what I was talking about earlier, that they're just folded like ever so slightly they're basically the same size as the end papers, but they need to be just like a fraction of an inch larger to fit the cover in there so that the cover can slide easily in and out. So yours may be folded okay. Mine it was just, like I said, it's so slight. So all I have to do is I'm going to take the piece that's folded. I'm just going to move that fold down a little bit. And you could put this kind of wherever you want, really. You could do it closer to the spine. You could do it on the edges. I am actually going to do mine right down the middle, almost like a belly band. And that's just going to kind of let it slide in and out. But I also thought it would give me the opportunity to decorate it if I want to. So you can see here, I'm just taking that bottom edge and I'm just folding it out. I really mean like maybe a 1/16 of an inch. It's just very small. So just kind of measure it. If you do have to refold yours, just measure it against the cover of the journal before you glue anything down. So that's what I'm doing here. I had folded it a little bit, made sure that it fit around my cover, made sure that it slides. And so I wanted to fold this one just a little bit more too. It's like you're just basically rolling it to the other side of the fold, if that makes sense. It's really so slight of a difference, but that's just going to keep everything moving easily. You want to kind of find that balance between it's going to hold it in place, but it's also going to let it slide, because that's the intention, is for it to be able to move in and out of there. So again, you could put it on the edge. I'm going to put mine here in the middle, more like a belly band. So, and it's just going to, I feel like this is just going to give me the best option. And then this allows you to be able to pull out your cover and put in a new journal when you fill this one up. So these journals are quite thick, though. They have, I think, like 368 pages. So there's a day for every day of the year if you want to do like a year-long project in there. I know that Bythewell has some smaller ones available in the shop in terms of like the numbers of pages. So that would be an option too. And then you could just adjust the size of the spine to whatever size that particular journal is. So you saw me using some liquid glue here. And the reason I'm using liquid glue is I want to make sure that when it dries, it's no longer sticky. So I do that with all my pockets, because any kind of exposed double-sided adhesive, it would just get hung up on it. At this point, I realized I wanted to do something to the outside, and it came with this, the beautiful accent fabric, but I had this fabric from when I got my kit. And I use this on the journal that I created for the devotional, but I really, really love this combination. So I'm actually going to tear this down and use this fabric. So, but if you don't have this particular fabric, use the fabric that came in yours, or you could use a different fabric if you wanted to. You could, however you want to do this. This is your cover. But originally, I would have, if I would have been thinking about this in the beginning, I would have made this so that it wrapped around, but I wasn't thinking about it at that point. So I just cut it down to the exact size, and I am going to use Cocoina glue. This is a glue stick that I use whenever I'm covering the little pocket Bibles. It's a great glue because it does not seep through the fabric. So I'm just applying it. I first did just down the spine, so I made sure I have everything kind of lined up and equally spaced from the front to back. And then I'm just going to pull this down, and for some reason that one was like really stringy, so I'm pulling out a different one here, but this is a brand new one. And I'm just going to add the adhesive right here on the fabric and then smooth everything down. I'll do that on both sides. But you know, depending on how you want to wrap your cover, you could make that so that it went underneath all of that. We just add another kind of layer of bulk in there at the spine that you know, so you just keep that in mind. But here's where I got a little bit of adhesive over there. I just was able to run my bone folder and loosen that up, and then it's fine. But you can see I'm just going to slide the covers of this Midori journal in here. This one was a little fidgety, so it takes me a second, but you can kind of see now how it's just going to slide in there. And I really feel like it's going to be very secure. So as you open this journal, it's going to lay flat. That's the beautiful thing about the way that the Midoris are designed, is that when they're open to any page, they lie flat, which is a feature that I really appreciate with journals. So, and then the cover being able to open, and it can just kind of slide back and forth, as you can kind of see how that works there. So the last thing that I'm going to do is to add some book corners to my cover. These are some Tim Holtz ones. They have them in 3 different finishes. And I'm just doing this because I like the way that it looks. It's certainly not necessary. And you don't even have to add glue here. I just always do this when I add the book corners. I just add a little dot. I'm using Helmar 450 Quick Dry. It's a really strong glue, and so, but again, it's really not even necessary. So you just kind of slide these book corners on the edge, and you can really fold them down even just with your fingers if you want to. But because this is such heavy, thick chipboard book board that we're using, I am using a pair of pliers to just make sure it's nice and secure and flat, and I'll do that on all 4 corners. And then basically my journal will be finished. I am waiting. I realized when I was filming this and trying to finish my cover, I want to add a book plate here, and I am out of them. So I have some ordered, they just haven't come in yet, but when I get mine, I'll add it on there, and then I'll post an updated picture on Instagram. But this is the way that it turned out. So I hope this video was helpful. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And until next time, bye.